see it goes red. To turn off.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, to this Licensing Statutory Subcommittee meeting, and I welcome everybody here. Apologies for the shuffling of the furniture on the Titanic, but we're there now, and I'd like to get the procedures underway. I understand the recording's in operation. And should we be notified that during the course of the operation that, in the course of the meeting, that the live streaming is interrupted at all, we will attempt to suspend the meeting at that point to resume that connection, and if we're able to do so, then proceed. But we will continue without it if we're unable to for any reason. The process that we will follow today is broadly outlined in the papers that are here, but for those who haven't been before, I'll introduce members. We'll ask the licensing officer to present the papers, and then we'll go on from there. We'll be able to ask questions. The applicant will be able to present their case as well, and as it says here, there will be opportunity for objectors to speak and for questions to be asked of relevant people. So, my name is Councillor Keith Horgan. I'm the chair of the Licensing Statutory Subcommittee and the District Councillor here in East Cambridgeshire. To my right, we have our Senior Licensing Manager, Licensing Manager, Stuart Broom. We have our Democratic Services Officer on my far left, Patrick, and our legal officer here, Maggie Camp, and other members of the committee. You can see their names there, Councillor Julia Huffer and Councillor Lee Denny. And we'll, with no further ado, proceed to item 1, if I may, to see if there's any apologies and substitutions.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we've had apologies from Councillor Charlotte Kane and from Councillor Lavinia Edwards. Councillor Julia Huffer is subbing for Councillor Edwards, and Councillor Lee Denny is substituting for Councillor Kane.
Splendid, thank you. I will ask if there's any declarations of interest. Good. We'll move straight on then to item 3 on the agenda, which is an application for a variation of a premises licence under the Licensing Act 2003. On behalf of the applicant, Mr. Douglas Durrant of Lodestar Events Limited, and the premises land south of Franks Farm, Lode Fen Lode. At that point, I will ask our licensing officer to introduce this matter. Stuart.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, we're here today to determine an application to vary a premises licence submitted by Lodestar Events Limited in respect of TR Events, land south of Franks Farm, Lode Fen Lode. Recommendation on this is that members consider the content of the report, all the evidence provided during this hearing, and determine the application in accordance with the options contained in paragraph 4.4 of the report. Now, the report has been published and provided to all parties in advance of this hearing, so I don't intend to go through every single line of this report paperwork, but I will obviously go through the main pertinent points. By way of event and premises history, events, both licensed and unlicensed, have been held at the location for 20 years, with attendances ranging from a few hundred up to 5,000. Lodestar festivals, family-orientated music events were held from 2009 to 2015 with attendances of up to 5,000 people per day, and it was restricted to 4 days. It's worth noting, it's not actually in the report, but it's worth noting that Lodestar Festival licence that limits the events, limits the premises to 4 days is still an active licence in the back. It hasn't been utilised for some years, but it is still on our system as a valid and operational licence, covering the same land that is proposed in the variation being determined today. So the details of this variation application is that on the 22nd of September 2025, Lodestar Events Limited applied to vary under Section 17 of the Licensing Act. That is contained in the report's paperwork as Appendix 1. The application was served on the responsible authorities and advertised in accordance with regulations of the Licensing Act. It was also placed on our website as an outstanding consultee item. The current premises licence, Appendix 2, restricts the applicant to holding 28 events between the 1st of December and the 10th of January each year. The variation application seeks to amend the premises licence to enable them to hold events for 28 days, but over the entire calendar year rather than just a Christmas period. The application also requests the following amendments to the existing premises licence, and that is that licensable activities are increased from midnight to enable them to go until 1:30 a.m. The licensable activity area is amended to provide freedom to move activities further away from the residential properties, and that some of the operating conditions are replaced and amended or added to, and they are set out on page 6 of the report. They're also looking to, amend conditions relating to noise monitoring and to add a further condition to those which are already on there, that the premises will not exceed 4,999 people. That's people, not staff and performers, so they would be in addition to that 4,999 figure, but that would be a capacity limit placed on the licence. There is a table on page 7 that sort of sets out the current licence and the proposed licence, how it would look if members were minded to grant the variation as it's been applied for. The proposed plan variation is attached as Appendix 3, and the current plan, so you can compare, is attached as Appendix 4. Now, just prior to going to publication on the report, the applicant's agent, Peter Coningsby, sent a letter of mediation to the objectors, and that is enclosed as Appendix 5. And at the point that we published the report, no agreement had been reached between the parties. Now, subsequently to the publishing of the report, members will have been provided with additional papers. They amount to the event management plan. It's in the secondary pack that everybody was given, and in there you have an event management plan from the Lodestar event, an incident report documents, a response to the mediation letter from Richard Peters, a response to the mediation letter from Thomas Pellegrini, and a letter supporting the application from Philip Robinson. That is in line with the regulations that the Licensing Act has, and it is entirely permitted for those to be considered by members today. So during the consultation period, no representations were received from responsible authorities. 2 valid representations were received from other persons permitted by the Licensing Act to submit those, and they are contained in Appendix 6 to the report. Planning Services commented during the consultation period to advise there were no specific queries on the licensing application other than to remind the applicant of their permitted development rights under Schedule 2, Class 4, Part B of the General Permitted Development Order 2015, which sets out restrictions as to the events that can take place and for the specific period that they can take place. So whilst there's no suggestions of any breaches of planning control to investigate, I can advise members that planning are aware of the circumstances around the venue and will obviously be monitoring from their side of things, but that doesn't have an impact on the decision being made today. They very much sit as separate regimes. So members are obliged to determine this application with a view to promoting the licensing objectives, which are the prevention of crime and disorder, the prevention of public nuisance, public safety and the protection of children from harm. You're also obliged to have regard to the statutory guidance under Section 182 of the Licensing Act and the Council's own statement of licensing policy. Should members depart from either, they must specify the reasons for doing so. You must only take into account information contained within this report and the evidence submitted, both written and oral, during the hearing. And you'll note in the report pack that Appendix 7 has various extracts from the statutory guidance and Appendix 8 from the local policy, that obviously members had a chance to read through. When it comes to determining this type of application, you have the ability to grant the variation, reject the whole or part of the variation, and modify any of the conditions of the licence that relate to the variation being submitted. Members are asked to note you may not modify or impose new conditions or reject the whole or part of the application merely because you consider it desirable to do so. It must be appropriate to do so in order to promote the licence objectives, and any such step must relate to the actual representations made. Conditions attached must be focused on matters which are within the control of the applicant, i.e. the premises and its vicinity. Okay, and Regulation 19A requires members to disregard any information provided which is not relevant to the application or the representation that they have submitted. So anyone here to submit their representation in person should be amplifying the matters which are contained within that representation, not introducing new items at this stage. Indeed, new items can only be introduced with the agreement of all parties present. Okay, members must provide reasons for the decisions and consider responsibilities under the Human Rights Act when balancing the rights of the applicant and the rights on those who may be affected by the decision. Various articles under the human rights apply. Article 6, right to a fair hearing. Article 8, respect to private and family life. Article 1, peaceful enjoyment of possessions, which includes the possession of the licence. And Article 14, the right of freedom from discrimination. Financial and legal implications of a decision. The cost of convening this hearing is covered by the licence fees paid by all licence applicants. Should there be a decision to refuse or modify the conditions, the applicant can appeal to the magistrates, and indeed there is a right of appeal to any other party who's also party to the application that's to a magistrate's court, and it's within 21 days from the date of the decision of a notice. With regards to making the decision should be made today, but we do have up to 5 days to communicate that information to the applicant and those other parties present. That is my statement on the application, Chair, and I'm available for questions if there are any.
Thank you, Stuart. We move on now to members. You're able to ask questions of the licensing officer.
Thank you, Chair.
Huffer.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not even sure if this is, you would be able to answer this. When is a TTRO triggered? It says depending, I'm looking through the paperwork here, said TTRO, because a lot of the complaints are about the volume of traffic. At what stage does a TTRO have to be? What size of event does a TTRO have to be applied for? Do you know?
I don't believe there's a mandatory limit as far as the attendance at an event. What will generally happen is those who are looking to put an event on, they will consider all of the information available and put together a traffic management plan, regardless of the scale of the event. If it's a larger event, generally speaking over 500 people, then the safety advisory group would be involved. The safety advisory group is an extended group of people from all the various blue and green light sort of services, and they will obviously look at that, and there will be highways people there. And if they believe that there is going to be an issue that needs some sort of restriction placed on the highways, then they will advise the applicants who are present to apply for that.
Just one or two questions from me. Stuart, you've explained that the licence holder currently holds 2 valid licences with us at the moment, each of which have their own distinct conditions. In your knowledge and experience, have both of the licences, the conditions appending to each, have they been followed?
I joined the authority in 2015. The original Lodestar licence was obviously in existence prior to, I believe it was 2006, when that licence came into being. During my time as licensing officer and now licensing manager, I am aware that, you know, I'd say by and large the conditions have been followed, and Doug has presented himself as a responsible promoter of events. However, the TR events that occurred in 2023, which was when this licence, which is now being varied, was originally granted. There was an event, there were 3 events in that December, the 7th, the 8th of December and the 15th of December. The 7th and 8th were relatively small events in the grand scheme of things. I think five or so hundred people to those. The event on the 15th attracted a larger number. I think it was around 15 or 1600. I'm sure Doug will correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it was around that sort of figure. And we did receive 5 complaints off the back of that, which we held a debrief meeting following that, and there were deemed to be sort of failings on the event management plan, but mainly relating to the traffic management plan part of that document. That there were certain things to do with stop-go notices and things hadn't been applied for that needed to have been, which could have mitigated it. So when we had the debrief, and say Doug was present at that meeting, and obviously plans were put in place to ensure that didn't happen moving forward. And again, anecdotally, we felt that when the license was applied for in 2023, it came very late in the day, and the normal time limits that were put in place to ensure that there was full safety advisory group input were not possible or feasible to enable events which had already been planned and tickets sold for to go ahead. And so the decision was made that the event management plan would be submitted. That would be the final version we'd go with. We did sign it off as being acceptable, but unfortunately it looks as if certain parts of it weren't followed as well as they should have been by some of the people on the ground. And as a result of that, there obviously, you know, was I believe there were 5 complaints registered with us where stating that load itself had come to a bit of a gridlock situation because there were vehicles trying to come in whilst vehicles were trying to go out, and you know, and I think even at that meeting, you know, Doug was very aware of what happened and where things had failed, and gave assurances that moving forwards that wouldn't happen. But that's the history that I'm aware of, Chair.
Thank you, Stuart. And just one final question. Since December the 15th, 2023, has there been any other events at this location?
I'm not aware of any that would have necessitated the licence, because obviously there would have been the need to advise the safety advisory group and have it signed off and approved by myself and Cambridgeshire Constabulary. So yeah, I'm not aware that any events have happened since that point. Again, Doug's here and can answer if there's been any other events, but certainly none that relied on these licences.
Thank you, Stuart. If there's no other questions for the licensing officer.
Just one arising, please. My name is Duncan Craig, by the way. I'm here to represent the licence holder and applicant. Just want to clarify the position. It's not unusual, is it, for more than one licence to be held on a particular premises? In fact, Section 2.3 of the Licensing Act actually provides that there should be no restriction on that. Is that your understanding as well?
No, absolutely. It's my understanding. I'm sorry if that wasn't made clear. As I say, the reason for mentioning its existence is because obviously it's covering the same area of land that has been proposed on this new licence. But no, there is absolutely nothing under the Licensing Act prohibiting somebody from holding multiple licences for the same piece of land.
Yes, I'd just like to reiterate that the questions I asked had no bearing on the fact that there are multiple licences there. We don't consider that to be in itself an issue. Okay, at this opportunity, sorry, you didn't catch your second name, sir? Craig. This will be your opportunity to present your case to us, please.
Thank you, Chair.
before I start my stopwatch, can I just clarify? It says on the your Democratic Services Officer said I had 5 minutes, but in the papers it says I have 10. I can work with either. I just need to know really, and obviously it would be the same for all parties.
Do you need 10?
I might need more than 5.
Then I will indulge your requirements.
Obviously, it would be right for the objector to get exactly the same amount of time that is afforded to me. Thank you very much, and I'll just...
Before you start, perhaps you could introduce the others, and we will not start the clock until you
Okay,
finish.
well, I've got my stopwatch ready. Do you want to introduce yourself, Doug?
I'm Doug Durrant, the organiser and founder of Lodestar Festival and Lodestar events.
And you're the director of the licence holding company as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Doug's also the director of the licence holding company. So he's effectively the licence holder.
Peter Collinsby from PC Licensing, the licensing consultant that put the application in, and I've done the attempted mediation between parties.
Thank you. So, Mr. Craig, please start when you're ready.
Thank you very much. And has been set out, this is an application to vary an existing licence, and it's right to say Doug has operated at this site for over 20 years, and it's worth pointing out. I would suggest that what's been pointed out in terms of issues represents a very low level given the length of time that he's been operating at the site. This is essentially an application, firstly, to, in fact, reduce the number of event days that are available under this licence, but to spread them out over a year rather than condense them all over to, I guess, a 5-6 week period. And that's just to give more flexibility. But obviously that's being done in conjunction with a number of restrictions that will be placed on this licence in terms of notification to responsible authorities, in terms of requirements to do event management plans, which would also incorporate in certain instances noise management plans, traffic management plans. And it's worthwhile pointing out at this stage for sure that it's unusual for an application such as this to receive no representations at all. You might sometimes get from responsible authorities, I should add. You might sometimes get responsible authorities making a representation, and then it's been negotiated out by the addition of conditions. But what is particularly noteworthy about this application, it's credit to Peter for his pre-application discussions with responsible authorities, that none of them have made any observations upon this application at all. And whilst obviously you're here to hear the representations that are before you, I am duty bound to point out what the statutory guidance says at paragraph 9.12, namely that responsible authorities are experts in their particular field, and they will have carefully considered this application and considered it not to in any way undermine the licensing objectives, and they will have also considered that this is a proportionate and appropriate application by the licence holder and applicant. There's a further application, or contained within the application, to extend licensable activities. Currently it's midnight, and to extend that to 1:30. And again, that's to afford a little bit more flexibility, but that is being applied for in conjunction with greater restrictions in terms of noise monitoring, and effectively a winding down of the musical output from 11 o'clock, which is in accordance with where the Live Music Act suggests that the night time properly starts. So at that point in time, whenever there's an event on, there'll be a requirement to turn the bass down at 11 and the music overall at midnight. And clearly your authorities, environmental health, have considered that to be appropriate and proportionate. There's also a further restriction in respect of just restricting the number of people permitted on the premises to 4,999, excluding obviously any staff or entertainers. One of the issues that appears to be raised in the two representations is the fact that the events are now going to be spread out over a year rather than in a condensed period. But I'm bound to point out that this application was very well advertised. Not only, I spoke to Doug this morning, I looked at the site this morning as well, had a good scout round. Firstly, obviously it was advertised in the newspaper. The blue notices were put up in accordance with the regulations, which is not unusual. One of your licensing officers came down and asked that we put more up in excess of the regulations, which we were happy to do. I think there were 16 notices in total. It's also correct that Doug has advertised the application in the local publication Lodestar to let people know, and provided his home phone number as well. So there's no question, from a statutory point of view and from a practical point of view, lots of people in the local area were aware of this application, and clearly none of those other residents have raised the objections to the overall thrust of the application, but in particular the fact that the events are going to be spread out as is proposed under this application. And I'm bound to, I'm going to get too technical. It's important I try not to stray into that too much, but there is a code for outdoor events called the POP code, and that does tend to place, it tends to view events that are spread over a wider period as less intrusive than those that are contained within a shorter time frame, and that's a statutory. It's not statutory, but it's a code that is produced centrally to guide environmental health departments as to outdoor events. Now, of course, it has to be balanced against the fact that the events will be in the summer and not as just contained to those particular dates in December and January. Correct to point that out as a imbalance, but what this will represent is 20 event days a year, and obviously with the required notification to the responsible authorities, and not just responsible authorities, as has correctly been pointed out. Highways, for example, are not a responsible authority, but they would obviously be consulted in relation to any traffic management plan. Just briefly turn, if I may, to the event management plan. I am certainly, given the time limit I've got, I'm not going to take you through each and every part of that, but I think it's important, given the concerns that have been raised. Please just invite you firstly to turn to page 8 in that document. That covers the general event risks, obviously very comprehensive, 15 different event risks that have been identified there. On the following page, you've got the corporate structure, and obviously you can see Doug at the very top of that. Page 13 provides the map, and there's one thing I didn't mention, of course, is the fact that the licensable area is proposed to be moved somewhat in order that the events can be located even further away from the residential properties to which these objections relate. Page 20 deals with young persons, because I know that the representations express some concerns about young people, and that there's a comprehensive risk assessment there aimed at that particular area of concern that was raised. You've then got page 38, considerable steps in relation to management of noise, and I know from speaking to Doug today and looking at the site today, the residential properties are some distance away from the event space. There's no question about that. I can say that with absolute confidence, but obviously Doug has been monitoring that, and of course if there were live and ongoing investigations by environmental health, then it's likely that they would have taken a different view to this application. And in fact, there's even a working area noise risk assessment contained at page 41. You've got at page 46, health and safety policy, and perhaps importantly, given the nature of the objections and the question that was raised at page 55, comprehensive matters dealing with traffic management. I'm descending into 9 minutes now. I'll just make the point that the objections, obviously we can answer any questions that you have. I'm bound to point out in terms of Mr. Peters, a lot of his objections appear to be commercially motivated. He's obviously got concerns about his glamp site, sorry, and that isn't, with respect to relevant consideration. What we're here to do is effectively evaluate this application, the track record of this applicant, the likely impact of this application in terms of the licensing objectives, balanced against the benefit that this site and these events bring to the local community, the local in terms of the local economy, and in terms of the benefits it brings to people attending the site, the mitigation measures that have been advanced, the fact that there are no responsible authorities before you today, and clearly they feel that this is a responsible operator who takes his legal responsibilities and his responsibilities under this licence very seriously, and so please we invite you therefore to grant this application as it now stands. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We will now have an opportunity for members, the legal officer and any other parties here to ask questions of the applicant. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know the area at all. Can you tell me how far away is the nearest residential or glamping site from the very edge of your site?
The nearest resident is about, well, from the entrance, about 400 metres.
From where regulated entertainment would be carried on. It's got to be
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's, yeah, that would be, well, it will vary a bit, but about 800 metres to 1,000 metres.
And would you agree that in the winter, most people have their doors and windows firmly shut because it's icy blast? In the summer, people will have their windows and doors open because hopefully we'll have a warm summer, and noise will travel probably much further, and people will be much more aware, even 800 metres away, than they would be in the middle of winter.
I don't think anybody can dispute that the people open their windows more in the summer than the winter. That is a matter of fact, and of course it's ultimately about what is being asked for and whether it's reasonable and whether it's proportionate. But of course I have to agree with that. But let's not forget that this site has previously been used for large events, and as far as we are aware, there have been no complaints to environmental health, certainly none that have been sustained, about noise breakout from the premises, be that through one licence or the other. And Doug, you want to just talk about the noise mitigation measures that you take?
Yeah, sure. The noise is monitored every half an hour and recorded through apps and electronically. Yeah.
In
Sorry?
that direction,
Yeah, and we always put the loudspeakers so that they create a sound bubble, and if the wind is in a particularly unfavourable direction, then we obviously monitor and lower the volume appropriately for that.
But sorry, Chair, I've got several questions. But would it be fair to say that you've never done that in the middle of summer? Yeah.
Sorry. The festival was in end of August. Yeah.
That's fine, thank you. And the last thing, sorry, Lee, I'm hogging all the space here. And the TTRO, because a lot of people are saying, there was one complainant I saw who was trapped on her drive for 3 hours. When are you intending to use the TTRO? Because that, to me, even if it's a less than 500 event, would seem to be a basic requirement where you control the traffic, the flow of traffic coming in and out, so people don't get trapped in their drives and load doesn't grind to a halt? At what stage, what size of event do you consider it to be necessary to use a TTRO?
What you're relating to is actually in 2023 when the then event management company I was working with unfortunately didn't do a very thorough job, which is why I had more input the next year, and we put a completely new road in as well, and there was absolutely no issues the following year whatsoever, and in actual fact a lot of residents didn't even know the event had gone ahead.
The question was.
Yeah.
The question was, is at what stage will you bring
sure,
it, will you
yeah.
ask for, because I think this is important, because local people will be anxious. You say it only happened in 2023. They want reassurance that if this licence was to go ahead, that the same thing isn't going to happen in 2026, 2027 and 2028. They want to know that you're all over this and that, yes, you had an events manager who wasn't clearly doing his job, but what action, at what stage will you implement, the size of event that you're advertising, will you implement a TTRO?
I would expect around 3,500 plus people. Yeah. The TTRO would be come into it, and we'd take advice as well from traffic management. But the above the 500-600, then they would be coming in buses, so there'd be far minimal traffic movement.
Do you
Do
you still have a management plan of sorts, though?
Yeah, everything, yeah.
Seriously expecting me to believe that anything up to 500 people would just arrive on buses?
Sorry, no.
People will be arriving, doesn't matter whether
Yeah.
it's 500, 1,000 or 3,000. Some
Yeah.
people will arrive on buses, I absolutely 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
But some people won't be. So maybe half will be arriving in cars. 1,500, 2,000 additional cars going through load?
Well, can I just make one quick point about that? The general rule about people attending is normally, in terms of cars attending an event, it's normally about 40% of the, because obviously lots of people share a car, not everybody does. It's usually about 40%. I'm just feel, if there were 2,500 people in attendance, there won't be 2,500 cars. I've just put, anyway, Doug.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's my duty as a member to ask you the difficult questions and pose the what if. And that you as an event manager and have to apply the what if scenario. So I'm saying to you, you're saying you're content to only apply for a TTRO when you've got around you've sold around 3,000 tickets and you've got 3,000 people coming, expecting there may be an additional 1,000, 1,500 cars? 1,000 cars?
If I say, with the festival, we had 5,000 people coming in on a Friday afternoon, all cars, and a lot of these events will actually be corporate events where the staff are told to use buses. And we will look at each event on its own merit and how many people and how many people are expected on buses to then implement a TTRO.
Just one of the conditions on the proposed variation is at least 6 weeks' notice to be given in respect of any event of more than 2,500, and any below that that's more than 500 is 4 weeks' notice. One would expect in those circumstances highways to say if you need a TTRO, then there needs to be one in. Yeah,
TTRO, you need to allow 12 weeks for a TTRO.
Well, in which case, my point being, if highways aren't happy with that and the SAG aren't happy with that, the event can't go ahead. The event can't happen.
You've already sold the tickets.
Well, that's his problem.
But surely the sensible thing would be to think, I've got an event, I'm going to apply for a TTRO regardless.
Of course, but obviously the point I'm making is if there's a situation where he's not done one and highways thinks he should have done, the event won't go ahead. It can't go ahead.
Thank you. Councillor Denny.
Thank you, Chair. And I have to say, my colleague, you probably actually asked some of my questions
Sorry,
anyway.
sorry.
Something that has just come to mind, have people got to pre-book? These are all going to be pre-booked, so that you can't just turn up at the door and get in.
Some events, or most events, will be like that. Some events might not be. Like we're looking to do, which would be an unlicensable charity event, and that would be a family fun day and a half marathon. So that would be people turning up as and when.
But how are you going to control the numbers if you're going to potentially have people just turning up? Because, you know, if we've got an issue with the highways, and that's going to be too late for that, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry, what I was referring to then was small expected village equivalent to a village event. The actual licensing events will be known numbers from the corporate staff, pre-booked, yeah. And then anything that is public will be ticketed events. It has to be, because we cannot sell tickets more than the license would be anyway.
Sorry, Chair, can I just make a clarification on something? Just...
Please, yes, do.
Yes, sorry to interrupt. Just to go back to the bus issue that was mentioned earlier on. Excuse me. Doug will correct me if I'm wrong here, but the 2024 event, we're not talking about buses, like general buses that we jump on and pay for. We're talking about buses that have been... Yes, that's it. From, I believe it's the Park and Ride. So most of the attendees were driving to the Park and Ride, jumping on buses in their 60s, 70s, and then being bussed to the event. And there were very few cars at that 2024 event, which is why so few people knew it actually took place. Just wanted to clarify that point.
Continue.
Yeah, I have to. Yeah, that doesn't particularly answer my query about numbers attending. So if you've got an event, say, I don't know, 5 weeks' time, you're selling to corporate businesses, yes? I'm trying to articulate this question, actually.
And members of the public just rock up.
Yeah. Well, if you've got, let's say you've got 500 people that booked, so they've all paid, yeah? It says here you've got 500, 2,500, you have to give no less than 4 weeks' notice. So at that point, do you then shut off any more purchases? That's it. That's all they can have.
Yes, obviously, as the traffic management would come into play, it would have to be shut off. It's also all of the infrastructure, facilities, toilets, everything that you've booked and catering. You have to have that time to prepare for the event, as well as the traffic and that sort of thing. So you have to cut off.
I think the answer is, for those events, people can't just walk up and walk in and pay on the door.
I think that's what we're trying to ask, is that can people...
No.
Oh, there's an event going on. Can I just walk in, buy a ticket? The answer is no, you can't buy a ticket at the door. Is that what you're saying?
Sorry. The majority of events would be like that, yes.
Can I just ask what events wouldn't be like that then?
Yeah. They would be small village events, charity organised events, but not really applicable to this licence, really. Yeah.
Second question. The original licence was, sorry, I don't know the history of this, so forgive me, was for 28 events between December and the 10th of January, yes? What was the reason for 28 events between those periods?
Yeah, I don't know how it got into that period. It should have been all a 12-month period. But it was left to the current licensing consultant I used at the time.
So that was 2015, wasn't it, I believe? Is that correct? When was the...
2023 or something, yeah.
Yeah, if I can probably answer that, Councillor. So in 2023, there was an application put in by Mr Durant's then consultant. That application only requested 28 events between those limited period. It was all designed around having corporate Christmas parties and that side of things. And obviously, they only in that first year utilised it on 3 occasions, not the full 28, and then they haven't utilised it since then.
Thank you for that. So what's changed? Is there a business case, from your point of view, then, not to have the 28 events for the Christmas period?
Yes, obviously corporates have a requirement for summer events and as well as Christmas. And the idea of having the licence as a proposed is to give commercial flexibility on opportunities that come along and also be manageable for safety advisory group and licensing and notify people, and with the TTROs and everything else that goes into making the events safe.
Are there any particular periods of the year you're expecting to be busier than others?
I honestly can't say that at the moment because obviously having any time during the year will give more flexibility, for events to happen under licence.
Would you say then that the 28 events you've been having, or allowed to have, between December and January, haven't been particularly successful?
Well, we're only into the second...
Sorry to interrupt. I'm not quite sure that pertains to the 4 licensing principles. We're not looking at the success. You can ask how well attended were they, which by inference gives you an indication of how successful they were against the licence. But we're not here to judge a business case whether this applicant should or shouldn't run at other times of the year. So just bear that in mind, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Apologies. Yeah, I should have asked, has there been an average attendance? Have you got any average attendance figures?
Well, the first 2 years have been an average of about 2,500, and then 500 the following night, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Final question. I know you've got a nominated person, a monitoring officer, or whatever you call them. I take it they're specially trained for these sort of events. What happens if they are off sick or don't turn up?
The noise monitoring, yeah. We've got, it's a mobile app that we've got other people that can use that app and record, and that then puts the recordings onto a PDF format.
Thank you, Councillor Denny. Like you, I might need more than 5 minutes with my questions. I appreciate that. Thank you. That's very kind of you. So, I'm going to try and limit my questions pertaining to what I refer to as the winter licence, as opposed to the 4-day all-year licence. Obviously, you may remember, I was the chair of that committee that granted that licence in 2023. And there was a certain degree of leeway that needed to be applied, specifically relating to the event management plan. Obviously, I was very sorry to hear that on one occasion there was some traffic-related problems. So what did you learn from that particular example and what's changed since?
Well, the event management company I was working with, I took or gave them more advice and control and made sure that the traffic flows into the whole site and not just at the entrance of the site. And we've created a completely new roadway so the traffic goes 350 metres into the site. The cars can branch off onto the car park, and then the buses stop and unload 2-3 buses at a time and continue round in a circle and back. So there's a one-way system on site, and that totally clears the road then and keeps the road clear, the public highway clear.
Tell me, do you have any skills or qualifications in terms of traffic management?
Only the experience I've had with the festival, the knowledge of the cars over the festival period, over the length of time I've been doing this, and I employ CSP or different traffic management companies for their full professional advice and help with staff. And like I said, it's my experience. I haven't got qualifications. That's why I have qualified companies that are involved with every aspect, from the SIA to traffic and everything.
No, I appreciate that experience, particularly local site knowledge, is very important. But obviously, a plan's only as good as whether or not people follow it, I guess. And we've heard earlier that for some reason the plan wasn't followed on that occasion. Do you understand why that wasn't followed now and what has changed since?
My more heavier involvement and actually being involved with the actual hands-on management of it, and will be running my own events as well under this licence.
What involvement do you have with traffic management on the day of the event?
On the day, before the event, obviously go through the whole traffic management plan with the company, making sure that they've got enough staff and the signage, and this is relayed in very good time with the safety advisory group to ensure that everything runs seamlessly, and avoids the problems.
Do you keep an eye on it on the day as well?
Yeah, and I'm very hands-on with that, and making sure that things don't go as I was with the festival in every aspect of the festival.
Thank you. That answered half of my question, which is what's changed, but I still haven't heard anything about what went wrong on that one occasion.
Yeah, as I said earlier, the traffic was being stopped at the entrance, and also so that the buses and taxis were being stopped too short and not allowed really or planned to come fully onto the site.
That's creating a test.
So, sorry, thank you. I'll ask the questions. Thank you. So was that contrary to the traffic management plan at that time?
No, it wasn't contrary. It's just the situation on the actual site, management, the traffic management on site, as opposed to the highways.
Sorry, my mic's not on. I'll ask the question again. There was a traffic management plan in force at the time, and it either was followed or it wasn't followed. Which is it?
It was followed, but it wasn't a full plan as I would have done on the actual management, knowing the site.
Okay, so there was a plan, it was followed, but it wasn't good enough. Has it changed?
Totally changed. Yes, totally changed.
That's what I'm looking for.
Sorry, yeah. Yeah.
We're there. We're there. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so and again, sorry to harp on about December the 15th, 2023. I heard mention or give reference to an event the next year, which presumably was another December event or events. What scale was that? What, can you remember in the 2024, how many people attended those events typically?
Yeah, it was about the same level of events, but...
Could you give me numbers, please?
2,800, I think it was.
And so the event management plan talks about notification regarding events of certain sizes. That was followed?
Yes, yeah.
In terms of notifications, hopefully there should be an obvious answer, but does the parish council get notified about the events and in advance of when they're to occur?
I haven't notified them directly, no, I didn't.
Would you mind a condition that
Yeah, no, yeah.
As it's been raised, there wouldn't be an issue adding a condition to the licence requiring that, because they're not part of the SAG process and they're not a responsible authority, but my client has no problem that being required under the licence.
Well, I think that would at least be a courtesy. I'll leave it to our licensing officer to decide as and when it becomes a condition, or whether it becomes a condition, and I guess very much that depends on the outcome of today's meeting. Okay? I'm looking at these additional papers that have been submitted here, and effectively it falls into three parts, broadly speaking. There's a document which purports to be an event management plan, and then there are two other documents which relate to incident records, for want of a better definition. The event management plan, presumably this is something you've submitted for us to consider as a matter related to this event, or to this licence?
It's basically a framework EMP, obviously, so it would be adopted to each particular event. Is there anything in particular that you want to take us to?
Well, yes, actually, there is. I was just wondering, because the first thing that stood out for me was on page 38 that you mentioned previously, where on item 3, noise. If you could read out, please, read out item 3 on page 38. Please do read it out so that we can all... So I'm presuming this event management plan relates to the 4-day, what I call the summer licence. It's not summer, I know it's over the full year. So is that right? Is my understanding correct that this event management plan relates to the other licence that does allow you to go up until 2 o'clock in the morning? I wasn't sure whether this was a submission as the proposed event management plan for the winter licence, as I refer to it, or whether it was just an example. I'm just trying to understand.
Well, it's a framework document. Often these things do have matters that need addressing, and that is plainly an error, and that should be amended to 30 hours based on, should the application be granted, of course.
Not a problem, thank you. And again, in this pack, there is a couple of pages relating to handwritten incidents. But I look on again.
Which page, Chair, sorry?
I look again on page 48.
Yeah.
Incident report form. Presumably this would be a document that, were there an incident, this is when it would be recorded.
Yeah.
So obviously whoever fills this out is asked to fill out the time, the incident, how it was resolved and any other notes.
Yeah.
Not the date. You are aware, for example, that if the police needed to be involved, they would need to know what date it was. So again, I think another page which might need some attention.
Yeah, I don't know what's been redacted at the top right, but certainly that's a perfectly worthwhile observation.
How
could you not have a date?
I don't think date is considered under GDPR to be personal information.
Probably not, Chair, no. Of course, the date needs to be provided for in that form. But just make the point generally about this document that obviously this will be required to be disclosed to the SAG 14 days in advance of the event and finalised within 7. So they would all obviously be able to make observations upon anything that was in there that gave them any concern.
But obviously, I'm presuming there is an event management plan for the existing, again I refer to it as a winter licence, the December-January period licence, which isn't this one. Was there a reason why that one wasn't submitted?
The current year traffic
the current event management plan for the 28-day winter period licence, that isn't this one, clearly. Is there a reason why that wasn't submitted instead of this?
Well, this is, the event management plan is for this variation.
So you're saying this is the one that you would like to have in force for the existing 28-day licence that would, if granted, would have run across the full year? Because clearly this, unless you've edited that event management plan, that should not have 0200 hours on page 38, for example. So where is the event management plan, if you want to submit one as an example, in relation to the current 28-day licence?
So, Chair, that was like we said, that was just an example of what would be used. Obviously, there has been an error on there with the timings. There were two when we had a SAG. I think this is relevant. We had a SAG meeting beginning of September, and Doug had produced 2 event management plans as written in the conditions. One for the lower number, one for the higher number, and those were the 2 that we would use, or Doug would use, for the events. And we thought it might be an idea just for the hearing to submit something that was just as an example. So I'm going to assume here, I don't like assuming things, but I'm going to assume that when this was put together, it's not the exact EMPs that were put forward for the SAG, which the SAG agreed with and didn't have any issues with. And they've obviously gone through it with a fine-tooth comb. And then rather than submitting reams of paper for you guys to read through, we just went with a basic EMP.
I can assure you we're used to going through reams of paper. Okay, just a couple more questions, if I may. Noise monitoring. Whereabouts do you do that in relation to the boundaries of the event, 2 foot from the stage? Where?
The monitoring is done at the entrance, close to the nearest resident, and on the highway near a second resident, and also on the edge of the village.
So, multiple places, what I'm hearing, is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
and presumably you're using some decibel meter, for want of a better expression, or something which is equivalent to that, to actually measure noise levels. And do you take records, documented records of the sound levels recorded at those positions?
Yeah, what is recorded digitally is then put into a PDF that I can then pass on to yourselves, the licensing and environmental health officer.
Thank you. Mr. Conisby, mediation. It's good to see that you've attempted to mediate with the objectors, who we will be coming to. Where are we with that, please?
As you know, I wrote the letter. I try and cover off in letter all the points that are raised, try and mitigate the issues raised as well. Both objectors wrote back to me, and I thought at that point there's not much point in going backwards and forwards. Let the committee decide. I didn't think there was going to be any movement whatsoever, considering one of the objectors disagreed with what I'd suggested.
So, did any of the objectors come forward with any valid points, in your opinion, that made any changes whatsoever to anything?
Not with the knowledge that I have, or what I've experienced in the last year working with Doug. No, I mean, I consider that everything that was raised could have been mitigated, and that's what I tried to point out in the letters.
Well, again, that's obviously a matter of opinion, and as you quite rightly said, not everybody's going to agree. So I'm taking that they weren't able to raise or convince you that anything needed changing. Is that a reasonable assumption?
Yep, that's correct.
I'm sure if I sat here I could think of another 1,000 questions, but I am conscious of that Thursday is running away with us, and we don't want this to go on into Friday. And I'm satisfied that the questions that I've asked, I will then go back to others who may wish to ask questions.
I'm going to do one quick question. So the decibel levels that you're looking at, what is the decibel level you're looking at? So that means that you would then, or whoever is taking the decibel reading, would then radio through to the stage and say it needs to go down, this is too high.
We're basically following what was on the festival licence.
Which was?
73 LQ.
And have you got records to show, that you can show us? Have you produced any of those records to say that this is what the decibel levels were?
Yes, in both years. And we submitted them as well.
Councillor Denny.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. After the 2023 issues you had in the December with the traffic management and that, you say you put plans in place, obviously, to mitigate against those. I'm just looking at an email here from one of the residents in regards to issues they had on their driveway. So they're saying that in 2024 they were stuck on their driveway for 3 hours, unable to leave the village. There was a man in the road letting one car out at a time. There were thousands of cars, not 150. It was a complete fiasco. Now, you're saying that you've put a traffic management plan in. Now, I accept that this is one email, one letter as such, but it doesn't seem to me that that's fully working by this correspondence.
I honestly don't know how that they could say 3 hours. There wasn't even a traffic hardly stopped at all in 2024. That it was a continuous flow.
Yeah, just to follow up to that, do you actually, when there are particular issues, do you actually note it down on a special form? Have you got any professional form that you'd use to record all this?
We're monitoring it, and the stewards in the village radio in if there's any issues, and also highways monitor and can tell us afterwards what if there was any issues themselves, because they've got a system that shows if there was any traffic hold-ups.
But how would that show that they're stuck on their driveway? I mean, how do you prove this? Because I'm new to this, so I don't know. But I don't get how you can prove that there wasn't any issue, because you're not really giving me anything definite to confirm that.
There was absolutely no way that somebody was held on their drive, or even held on a drive for anything like 3 hours. The traffic movement was continuous, and it was a very short period of less than an hour, coming from the buses coming from this the train station and the bus park to the site. All the guests were in within about an hour.
Make the point, there's very little detail other than suggestion. Which email are you referring to, Councillor? Sorry, is it the one that's been sent as part of the supporting?
Could you refer to the page number?
Is it one that starts, Dear Peter, in response to your letter? Right, well, Mr. Peters is here, so you can obviously ask him questions about that, but my client's position is that simply isn't correct, and you saw no traffic on that road at all?
In 24.
No.
Of course you can have one more question.
Having John here, isn't it?
How do you know which event, how many events did you have in 2024, I suppose, is the answer? Because
No, it's the question.
that's the question, yes. Thank you.
Not the answer.
Yeah. There was, in 2024, 3 events. One event was the largest one. There was absolutely, in 2024, there's absolutely no issue with traffic at all. Certainly nothing that would cause anything like a concern with the event and the management of it.
Mr. Peters, you've been most patient, and I thank you for that. You will not only get your opportunity to sit at the table there to do your own presentation, but there's an opportunity here for you to ask questions of these gentlemen. So I'll hand over to you, and in order to get the microphone to work, you just need to press the button. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Can you just confirm the people who have been doing the noise monitoring aren't qualified at all to do that job?
Sorry, say again?
Can you confirm the people who have been doing the noise monitoring aren't qualified for that job?
No, they're not qualified.
Thank you. One other note. The closest house, I've measured it, and it's 240 metres to the site and 400 metres to the stage, to the closest house. And you state you've been doing this for 20 years now with no problems whatsoever. At least half of that you had no events on. Is that correct?
We've had small events and weddings and that sort of thing, private events.
But no festivals or anything with any large numbers that would impact the village at all?
No, since the festival that had 5,000 people travelling on a Friday afternoon in cars.
And what date was that, please?
2015 was the last festival.
Thank you.
Have you asked all your questions? Okay. I'll just ask a supplementary, if I may. Whilst you say that the people doing the noise monitoring are not trained as such, presumably they're given equipment to use, and it's the equipment that automatically registers the noise level. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, yes.
Okay, so they basically, it will be a handheld device, presumably that's about the size of a mobile phone, and you look at it, and on it will have a number. So that's the amount of training or qualifications you need. Can you read a number off of a screen? Is that reasonable?
That is correct, yeah. And normally you have in each spot a minimum of 15 minutes to get an average in peaks.
Thank you, that's very helpful. Right, okay. Gentlemen, thank you for your presentation. I would ask you to, in fact, Patrick, do you want the objector to sit in front of the... No. We're happy for you gentlemen, to stay there as long as you're happy as well, and if you're happy, you can stay there. But you will have equal amount of time as these gentlemen have had to actually present your case. So, Mr. Peters, please feel free to...
Good afternoon. My name is Richard Peters. I would like to oppose the application for the following reasons. I live at Anglesey Farm, Lode, which is half a mile from the festival site. For those that don't know, Lode is a dead-end village with only one road in and out. From where I live to the festival site, the road changes to a single track road with no official passing places. People's private driveways entrances are used to let oncoming traffic pass. At the moment, the parties are in December when there is very little other traffic about. If you decide to allow the changes to go ahead, the events will undoubtedly clash with the Cambridge Polo Club, which holds its events for hundreds of people throughout the summer. Last year, the village was at a standstill for 4 hours, with partygoers abandoning their vehicles in the village and walking to TR events. This meant no emergency vehicles could get in or out of our village. The road is in a very bad state and definitely not suitable for coaches. With 5,000 people allowed to every event, there's 63 coaches at full capacity of 80 people, or 5,000 cars. These coaches will be returning through the village during the early hours. If TR events claim there are not going to be 5,000 people at all the events, they should have the amount of people allowed by the licence lowered. But for now, we must assume 5,000 people will be present at every event. Me and my wife run a glamp site behind Riverside, Lode Fen, which is even closer to the site in question. This is our only source of income. People come and stay from all over the country for peace and quiet, stargazing, yoga, and to enjoy the wildlife. Our quiet period is in December, when TR events hold their events. It is not ideal, but it is bearable. If they are allowed to hold them all year round, our business will be forced to close. All TR events are held over or including weekends. With 52 weeks in a year and TR events having 20 of these reserved for loud parties, villagers will be unable to come or go in the village like last year and have no sleep. I feel this is totally unacceptable to allow these changes to happen. During December, there are very few contractors and farmers harvesting and bringing the produce up through the village, including Pretoria Energy, who grow maize for biofuel, then transport it on hundreds of huge trailers to Meeple. If the events are allowed to be on all year round, it will clash with the farmers harvesting and the road, and the village simply cannot deal with that. TR Events consultant states there have been no complaints is simply untrue. We have complained about the noise along with the neighbours for years. Martin Lord, who runs Neighbourhood Watch, also complained about the gridlock traffic situation. I have been in touch with Highways, who have confirmed they know of problems in the past with traffic at a standstill, but were not asked for their opinion, as it is not mandatory for them to be told about these potential changes. I do have the email here from them if it's needed. I feel it's a huge mistake, and we as a village are confident that Highways Department would now put a stop to this, especially now that they know the traffic scheme put in by TR Events is not fit for purpose. The traffic management scheme does not take into consideration the changes to events being held at the same time as other huge events like polo, the harvesting, the church, the village pub, village fun days, Anglesey Abbey events and other sporting events. The application is also to vary the time with an extension to 1:30. We can hear every single word while in bed every time there is a party. The traffic noise carries on for hours after the events finish. Last year we got to sleep at 4:30 due to traffic noise and drunken partygoers shouting and swearing while walking past the house. We woke up to having our driveway being blocked in by abandoned cars as partygoers left them and walked the rest of the way to the event because of the horrendous traffic situation. If the changes are allowed, our quality of life will be affected in a negative way along with the rest of the village. During December, most people have their windows shut as it is cold. If you allow these events to be all year round when people have their windows open for cooler air, then they will be forced to close them as the noise is unbearable. In PC Consultancy response letter to myself and Mr. Pellegrini, point 22, I'll read it out to you. It says, if during this monitoring process noise levels are found to be unacceptable, i.e. likely to be considered too loud if heard by people living while in their homes with the windows and doors closed, then the DJ will be asked to turn the volume and bass down. This will also be recorded. I think it's totally unreasonable during the summer to insist everyone should have their windows and doors shut, and if they're sitting in the garden without being abused by the loud music. During December, this is not an issue. I noticed the application mentions moving the events further away from the village by approximately 200 metres. This will make absolutely no difference whatsoever as there are no noise barriers to stop the noise travelling across an open field. At TR events in Lode Fen, the prevailing southwesterly winds most commonly push air towards the southeast, which is directly towards our homes. The dominant flow directs airborne particles across the flat Cambridgeshire landscape, carrying noise such as music and voices towards us and our peaceful glamp site. If the events are allowed to go ahead all year round, our lives are going to be ruined. We bought a house in the countryside for peace and quiet. Our children will be in danger as there is no footpath for them to use. During the winter, while the events are currently on, our children are in the house as it gets dark at 4. During the rest of the year, there are lots of children and teenagers out playing through the village and fishing down Lode Fen. Having 5,000 extra cars or 63 coaches to each event will put their lives in danger. There is also a new National Trust cycleway from Cambridge to Ely. Part of this is a single track road in question with the river on one side. I feel that highways have a duty of care to look after cyclists and pedestrians using the road as there is no footpath. If a coach has to pass a pedestrian or someone on a bike or with a pram, they will be forced to balance on the riverbank just feet from the water. If two vehicles meet head-on, it's very likely someone will end up in the river. During December, there are many fewer members of the public using the road. I read the only letter of support for the events from a member of the public in Lode. I noticed he has been promised something in return for his support. I also feel that having put the notice up down Lode Fen is not fair on the villagers. I called the head of the parish council and she says she has not been made aware of the application to vary the conditions. Very few people in Lode have been made aware of this. If we had more time, I would have called Highways for a site visit and along with the emergency services, the polo club, all the contractors and farmers and all the villagers to organise a meeting and a petition. I did notice a small piece in the Village magazine about a family fun day and a half marathon, but it didn't mention about the 5,000 people descending on the village nearly twice a month, causing gridlock, putting lives at risk with no emergency access and preventing the village sleeping. As it stands, it works out, if 28 events over a year, it's just under every second weekend he's allowed to have parties down Lode Fen. TR Events boasting about having another site at Quay Mill Hotel on their website. This is far from any neighbours and has good access off the A14. This should be used instead of the site in Lode. If TR Events are worried about public staying at the hotel who will be disrupted by these events, I suggest they also worry about the people staying at my Glamp site and the residents of Lode for the same reasons. Also on their website it states there is parking for 100 coaches and 5,000 cars at the site down Lode Fen, clearly showing the amount of party goers expected. Thank you very much for giving me your time and opportunity to voice my own and the village's concerns. I simply hope that common sense will prevail. I'm not against business, but this proposal for the expansion will be detrimental to our community and fatal to my livelihood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peters. I trust you will understand that as questions were asked of the applicant, we'll allow questions to come from yourself, and I'll invite members and officers and then subsequently the applicant to ask any questions you have, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Peter. Richard, your email of the 27th of October in relation to stuck on our driveway for 3 hours, yep, unable to leave the village. What event are you pertaining to?
I couldn't tell you exactly which event it was, but every time there's an event, in Lode, I'm not saying it's not mayhem through the whole village every time he has an event. The smaller ones aren't so bad during the village, but where the road changes to a single track road, which is where I live, it's mayhem every single event he has, whether it's 500 people or 5,000. And that's what I was referring to. So we woke up one morning and there's 2 cars parked in the driveway and I had to get my forklift and pick one up and move it.
So those cars that are parked by your driveway, they are definitely party goers, you're saying, yes? And they've parked outside your house or in your street, not at the event, where the event is?
Definitely. I was there in the morning when they came back and they got out of a taxi. They said they had to get taxis home because it's an absolute shambles where it's a single track road. So sometimes through Lode Village isn't too bad for the smaller dues, but when there's the bigger events on, the whole of the village is gridlocked, literally for hours and hours.
Do you have another question? Continue.
Thank you. You say there's obviously, you know, we're in a big sort of farming community, obviously Cambridgeshire. Do you find there's a lot of issues with farm traffic, especially during the harvest season?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
You talked about, obviously we're in a big farming community, Cambridgeshire. Do you find there's a lot of issues with farm traffic in the particular season where, you know, we're harvesting?
Yes, there's a huge amount of traffic, and the lorries. One example is Pretoria Energy. The lorries they use are getting bigger and bigger every year, and the road is sinking because of it. And they literally have hundreds of them queuing up now to have. Or the polo club's the same. They have lots and lots of horse boxes come down all summer, and it is bad enough just one event at a time. If this happened to clash with one of Mr. Durrant's events, it's unthinkable.
Thank you.
Councillor Huffer, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Peters. You say you've complained. Who have you complained to? Because these people are saying they haven't received any complaints. Other than the letter to Lynn Bagwell, I don't think we as a licensing authority have had any complaints. Would that be fair, Stuart?
Not in 2024, Councillor. Obviously, we had the 5 after the 2023 event on the 15th of December, but I wasn't aware of any complaints being received for 2024 events.
So who have you complained to?
We've complained to Highways directly and the Parish Council. But the Parish Council seemed to sort of just say, well, we're not consulted on this, so we haven't got a comment. And I said, look, I feel like I'm doing your job to the Parish Council coming here today, because I feel like they should be voicing everyone's opinion.
Thank you. But did it occur to you to speak to the licensing authority and say, because you must have been, I don't know if you're aware that they were licensed to carry out this particular, these functions. So you could have, that would have been very useful. You said you had an email from, are we allowed to see the email from the Highways Authority that he mentioned?
Not today, unless everybody here agrees for it to be introduced, because it wasn't introduced prior to today.
You may ask questions about that letter if you wish, I think, because obviously that, whilst it's not submitted in evidence, it is obviously the knowledge of the contents is in the possession of the objector.
Could he give us the contents of the letter? I don't want to cross any legal lines here.
I would obviously bow to our legal officer on this, but
Yes.
my opinion, for what it's worth, is that we'd have to treat that as if the document doesn't exist. Obviously, the gentleman is here to amplify his concerns which relate to traffic management, and there may be a way of formulating the question in order to extract the information you require.
Over to you, Councillor Huffer. Do you wish to pursue that particular point?
I'd like to have a cogitate with my colleague here to find out how we can formulate a question to get the information.
Okay, well, while you're quietly talking to each other, I can perhaps ask my own questions. Mr. Peters, roughly how long have you lived in your present location and operated this business?
13 years in the house where I am now.
Okay, and so that's around 2012 that you must have moved in, around that time. Okay, so you would have had reasonable experience of both summer and winter events. I mean, particularly, I see one of the incident reports is dated 2014, so that is after you've moved in. So I think it's reasonable that you've had quite some experience of the impact on the local community during the time that you've lived there. Is that fair to say?
Yes, and I've always lived in Lode. Okay. So although just at the current house, it's only 13 years, but I've always lived in Lode. So I'm aware of all the problems.
Fine, okay.
And am I allowed to mention one more thing?
You're supposed to be answering questions, if I may, but it may come out in your response to a question, shall we say.
Right.
So we'll continue with questions. Okay. Yeah. Now, we've heard reference to things like noise monitoring, stewards in the village. Have you personally seen those activities happen? Any experience of those?
None whatsoever. But I did get in touch with the licensing officers and about the noise problem, and they did send some noise monitoring equipment out because they said it had to be done by a qualified person. So I'm very surprised to hear that now someone unqualified is allowed to do it. So they sent the equipment. The council sent the equipment out to Mr. Pellegrini's house, who lives at Riverside, who is even closer.
If I can just clarify, I'm not saying that didn't happen, but it wouldn't have come from licensing. It would be our colleagues in the domestic pollution side who would have dealt with that, because as the gentleman says, they are very experts. We're not the experts on using that equipment.
I think just to sort of complete that statement, noise is more of an environmental issue. I know it's obviously one of the matters that pertain to a granting or review of a licence, etc. but obviously in the first instance, the environmental team would be the ones that would tend to be involved in that as opposed. So, not this chap. Fine, okay. So you live, I think you said, 400 metres-ish from the stage. Have you ever lived there during a summer event?
Yes.
And did you find the need during a summer event to close your windows because of the noise?
Yes, we're so close. Even the small events, we have to shut windows, doors. Even with the windows shut, I can hear the DJ, every single word that comes out of his mouth. And there's about 10 other houses that are actually closer to the site than me.
You almost make me jealous of your hearing ability, sir. It's far greater than mine, I fear. Fine. I go back to my colleagues now to see if they've been able to formulate their question appropriately.
Thank you,
Otherwise
Chair.
not.
We're not sure if it's appropriate, but we're going to give it a whirl.
Well, we'll give you some leeway, but
Thank you.
if I get a kick
From the
then
monitoring
we may
officer,
stop you.
yeah, okay. Were Highways able to confirm your suspicions that there were road traffic problems at the events that you said the village was gridlocked at during?
Yes.
I like yes/no answers. Fine, okay. I don't know if there are any questions from here, from the objector. I believe there may be one or two questions from the applicant, which I'll enable that to go forward now. They will be asking you questions which you'll be able to answer, I hope.
Well, I have one question, because the Chair asked you a question just now and you didn't completely answer. How long have you had your glamping business?
Approximately 3 years.
What do you mean approximately? When did it open? What date did it open?
I think March, April time.
Oh, which
Approximately
year?
3 years
which
ago.
Year?
3 years ago.
Oh, which year did it open? You say March or April, which year?
I couldn't tell you exactly.
Don't know what
Approximately
year
3 years ago.
So you're talking about a business that you say is under threat, but you can't tell us what year it opened?
Not right now, no. I'd have to go and check we have a licence for it, so I could get an exact date for you if it mattered, but I haven't got it with me.
I think it's a fairly straightforward question, but okay, well, I've asked the question. Thank you.
Do you have any other questions for the objector?
No, but we get a chance, opportunity to make.
You will have the opportunity to close. Don't worry.
I'll make a point about the email when I do that. Then, rather.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
Thank you.
Fine. Okay. Right. I think we'll probably move forward to that particular point where you have the opportunity to make your closing statement. So at this point, I'll hand over to you to do so.
How long have I got?
How long do you think you need? 2. Sorry, 2?
2, maybe 3 hours.
No. If you can try and keep it to 5 minutes, we'd be grateful. 2 or 3 minutes. Please start.
Just make some points about what's been said about in terms of the live matters that have been raised. A number of matters in there with respect aren't relevant. Talking about Ms. Peters talking about speaking for the village more widely. Well, that is pure speculation. The application has been properly advertised. There are 2 representations, and you cannot, with respect, take into account third-party input into this. You can't take into account an email that hasn't been adduced as evidence. If Highways wanted to make a representation on this application, they were perfectly at liberty to, even if they're not a responsible authority. Mr. Peters also made the point that there's a number of properties, 10 properties, that are situated closer to this venue than he is. Well, none of those residents have made any objections. I did speak to my client. Mr. Peters is sort of, he's amplified a particular point in this hearing, and I did ask my client about this. So I am authorised to modify the application slightly, which may go some way to assuage some of the concerns that have been raised. My client is perfectly content to limit the events to 4 a year to more of those more than 2,500. So he's perfectly content that that is placed as a condition on the licence, matter for you, but I'm formally modifying the application to that extent. So no more than 4 events a year where more than 2,500 people will be in attendance. Obviously, Mr. Peters has raised that as a concern. The key thing here is responsible authorities have scrutinised this application, have experience of dealing with Doug over a number of years. This obviously is an application for what we would say is a relatively limited number of events a year that have to go through a process, have to go through notification requirements, and if any of the responsible authorities or any of the public statutory or bodies that are concerned within the SAG group are unhappy with any aspect of it, both in terms of traffic management, noise management, or if there are any issues that are raised, they are perfectly at liberty to effectively act as a veto, because without the SAG being happy, then the event simply can't go ahead. And actually being involved in the SAG, when you think about matters like the Polo Club and highways being involved, that then gives them a level of input into events here that can engage a little bit of joined up thinking. And so with that, all that in mind, given the way that the application has now been modified, the extensive mitigation measures, and obviously you've heard from the applicant himself, then I would please invite you to grant the application on that basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Okay, now, before I bring the meeting to a close, where we will retire to make our decision, I just want to make sure that you, as the applicant, feel that you've had a fair opportunity to present your case.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for confirming that. Okay, gentlemen, as I'm sure you know and may even remember from the previous occasion, we do require up to 5 working days in order to be able to notify you of our decision. But obviously we will let you know as soon as possible, but not beyond 5 days. Thank you for your time today. And
Sorry, Chair, to interrupt, could you ask the representative?
yes, thank you. Reminded that I just want to make sure that Mr. Peters, that you feel you've had a fair and reasonable opportunity to present your case also.
Yes, thank you very much. I just need to point out one thing. I made a mistake. I complained to environmental health, not licensing. my mistake.
That's, thank you for owning up to that, and the good news was that you went to the right people. Excellent. So, gentlemen, with no further ado, thank you all for your time, and I now bring this meeting to a close at 16:47.5. Thank you.